This is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Show. And on today's show, we will divert from the state of Texas into the great state of Florida. And we typically don't do that. This show, what we do on this show is everything Texas. I am elbow deep in everything Texas every night of the week. But what happened is I got a phone call. And in the phone call, I was told, Chris, you need to look at a certain congressional race in the state of Florida, Congressional District 14 out of Tampa. This race is consequential to national politics. It'll affect every state from Florida to Connecticut to Ohio to Texas. Because this district has been a Democrat stronghold for a lifetime. But now, due to different changes in the environment and in the political sphere, it is now up in the air. It is a possibility that this thing shifts to the Republicans. And if it is, again, it's a seismic shift. It'll affect national politics. It may even affect global affairs. So it's a pretty big deal. And on tonight's show, we have Rochford. I hope I got that pronunciation.
You
Rocky.
did.
Very good, very good. Rocky Rochford. And he is actually a candidate for U.S. Congressional District 14 out of Tampa. Rocky, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris, for having me. This is a real honor, and I'm a huge fan of the great state of Texas. My brother used to live in Clear Lake, and the one thing I noticed, that lake is not clear. But anyway, so yeah, no, and my wife and I, when I retired from the military, we spent a lot of time in Texas. We drove all over Texas with our motorhome. We spent a year and a half in that thing, and I probably spent more time in Texas than I did in any other state.
Well, and it's a great it's a refreshing break for us because we are a Texas-centric show. So it's a breath of fresh air to dive into a new subject area. But Rocky, I want to ask you, why did I get that phone call? Why was I told that I needed to divert my show's attention from the state of Texas to the state of Florida? Why is this certain congressional race such a big deal?
So with a two-seat majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, every flippable seat is very, very important, because to maintain the majority in the House, if we don't maintain that majority, this is going to turn into a impeachment fest. It's going to be a nonstop impeachment. It'll be impeachment after impeachment for the president, the vice president, the Speaker of the House. I mean, everyone's going to get impeached, and it's not going to stop. So the reason that this is so important is because now, so this district used to be, when I ran in it in 2024, it was a D+8. After the presidential election, and I'm sure Cook PVI changes after presidential elections only. So after the 2024 election, it became a D+5, and as a D+5, it's still leaning Democrat. But when the governor redistricted in May the entire state, he redrew this district and he made it an R+11 under Trump.
Okay, so this is a recent change, and this is a big deal. You're saying that Governor DeSantis redistricted the state, which created a new district for District 14, and now this ball's up in the air, and it could possibly go to the Republicans.
Yeah, as a R+11, that was just Trump, but as a baseline, it's R+6. So that makes us leaning Republican. And this is the first time in 20 years. Castor's been sitting in that office for 20 years.
Who is sitting in the office?
Her name is Kathy Castor, and she is a Democrat. And just to give you an example of what she's done in 20 years, she has written two bills that became law, only two, and they were both to rename post offices. That's all. So the voters here in District 14, that's their return on investment.
So she's sort of a bump on a log, a very inactive person holding a very imperative seat.
And she has done nothing but vote exactly online. She started off way back when, in 2006, when she first ran and won. She was more moderate, but over the years she has drifted further and further and further left, and I think she's as far left as you can get now. She's most certainly a socialist. She's a supporter of the Cuban government. She invited them here into Tampa illegally, by the way. way back when. It was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, she's done nothing. She's done nothing to support, not only to support Florida 14, but to support Florida or anywhere in the United States, unless you're a hardcore far left.
Okay, so Rocky, now you're a candidate in this campaign. Why are you the guy to take on? I apologize. What her name again, please? Castor.
Kathy Castor. Yeah.
Kathy Castor. Why are you the guy to take on a 20-year incumbent? She's a stronghold. She has their name recognition. She's well cemented, well dug in that seat. How are you the guy to take her on?
So first off, is I ran last time against her, and I took more votes than any other Republican who's run against her in 20 years. So that's the first metric that means something. The second metric is I spent over 33 years in the United States Navy. I'm a retired U.S. Navy captain. I was a Commodore for the last 4 years of my career. And as you can see, these two big flags here are my pennants. So when I was a Commodore, I had a pennant that would fly over my flagships.
What is a Commodore?
So at any given time in the United States Navy, there's about 5,000 captains, but there's only 60 of those captains are Commodores. That makes this a very selective process. And I was not only a Commodore once, but I was a Commodore twice. And so the best way to define a Commodore is that you're in command of other commands. So the first time I was a Commodore, I had 13 ships under my command, and that was about $300 billion in resources and assets that I was personally responsible for. And then the second time I was Commodore, I had about 2,400 sailors, an annual budget of $75 million, and I was responsible for all of the equipment associated with amphibious assaults. Those are the Marines who make an attack on the beach. I'm responsible for making sure I get them ashore, and I get them ashore safely. And then all of the well decks, the ships that carry the equipment and the Marines, I certified them that they were authorized to go do these type of things.
That had to be an amazing, incredible experience. I find that work fascinating. I don't even know what question to ask. I just in a general observation, I find that fascinating.
It was a true honor. I was humbled that I was selected to do these jobs. My bosses were both admirals, and one was a 2-star, one was a 1-star. And I mean, I just enjoyed working for them, and the amount of confidence they had in me, because typically bosses like that, especially with the size of the organizations that I was running, they would want to have their thumb on you all of the time. And so I was prepared to do that. Boss, do you want a daily report from me? What do you want from me to understand, to make sure I'm keeping you in line with exactly what's going on? I said, Rocky, you didn't get here by mistake. So you just tell me when things go wrong, and I trust you emphatically to do what's right. So that was the greatest compliment I could have ever received.
Very good. Excellent. Rocky, again, I'm going to go back to Kathy Castor. She's not a pushover. She's not an easy victory. And you're in a crowded Republican primary. Tell us about this Republican primary. How does the field look? How do your chances look? Give us an idea of what's going on in this Republican primary race to take on and possibly take out longtime Democrat Congressional Representative Kathy Castor.
So the good news is as I had identified before, is that I'm the only candidate in this race who has run in a congressional race. I'm the only candidate who has won a congressional primary. I earned over 145,000 votes in the last election, and that is 3 times my closest competitor as far as how many votes that they've received in, and they've only run in safe Republican districts, safe R, and I ran in a D+8. So I have the wherewithal, I have the tenacity, I have the fight in me to be able to do this, and there isn't another candidate out there. Now the good news is that I've been to Washington every month this year, and in February I had about a 20-minute meeting with Leader Scalise, and that was a tremendous honor. And 20 minutes with the leader, it's like 6 dog years. I mean, it's a long time. And halfway through the discussion, because you can't really talk politics there, you can't talk about running. So we were talking about what it is I wanted to do when I got to Congress and what I'm working on. And he, halfway through that conversation, he looked up for his chief of staff and he said, "We need to get behind this guy." And that was a tremendous vote of confidence. And so what they did is, after redistricting, because they were all waiting till redistricting, once it was done, they're the ones who set up my interview at the White House. They called and got me my interview, and then I got an interview as soon as I got through the White House. Club for Growth found out that I was up there, and they said, "Rocky, come back to D.C. We want to interview you as well." And Club for Growth, being the most conservative organization in the country, they're the biggest super PAC. They're the big league, and they don't invite you back for an interview. They don't even need to interview you because they've already done all their work. They've already done the research against you. So that was another plus. And the biggest contributor to the Club for Growth, his name is Thomas Klingenstein, and he is the chairman of the Claremont Institute. That is the most conservative think tank in America. And the end of my 30-minute conversation was supposed to be a 30-minute interview, lasted 80 minutes. And at the end of that interview, he said, "Rocky," he said, "very few," and he says, and I mean very few people ever align with me as well as you do. He says, "So I'm 100% behind you." So these are all the pluses. We are very anxiously awaiting for the president to make a decision on exactly who he's going to endorse. And I have confidence. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, it's going to be an incredible race. I can't say enough about how pivotal this congressional race is, how pivotal the Republican primary is. But let's talk about the issues that matter most to you. You have big goals, you have big dreams. You want to get into this congressional district seat. Let's say you get the driver's seat. Let's say you take the wheel. What are going to be the issues that the people of Tampa are going to hear should you become their congressional representative?
Chris, that's a great question, and that most certainly is the foundation of what it is I've been working on. And so, I've been listening now since 2023 to my future constituents, and I've listened and I've understood, and I know what the kitchen table issues are because they affect me too. So this has been a great education for me. So I studied all those issues. This is the military coming out at me. You don't go into a meeting with your boss unless you're prepared. You got to know what the issues are. You got to know exactly where all the bodies are buried. You got to know where it started, how it started, et cetera. So I've done that for every issue. And I have hundreds of pages of research. I've read every page. And then I started, this is the logic behind what it is I've looked at. It's okay, let's just take one issue, the national debt. How did we get here? What happened? Who did it? When did it happen? How did it happen? And why did it happen? So I know all the answers to those. But then I went a step further. I said, okay, what has been tried in the past to fix this? What didn't work? What did work? And why is it not working today? Then, what is it that we could have done differently on some of the ideas that didn't work to make them possibly work? And so once I came up with the solutions, the logical next step was to actually draft a bill. So that's what I've done, and I've drafted over 40 bills. But here's the bottom line to that, is that, I recognize, because people have come up to me and said, freshman in Congress, you're never going to get 40 bills through. You might not, you'd be lucky to get one through. And I go, well, that's where you really don't know me. And you don't know what it is I'm prepared to do. And I'm prepared to take all 40 bills and hand them off to senior members of Congress to let them take full credit for it. And then I'll just be a co-signer. I'm not doing this for me. I don't care about the fame and fortune. I'm not here to become rich off of Congress and to do insider trading. No one can own me. You're not going to buy me. That's not who I am. That's not where I come from. That's not the faith that I have. Because I do believe that God has been guiding me on this journey. So my faith is very strong, and it's very, very much a part of this campaign. So that's the difference between me and the other candidates. Is I'm gonna push all these things through. We'll get them through somehow, because I'm very confident that the other folks that are in Congress that have been there for a long time will take these and run with them.
Okay, so let's talk about the national debt. I have a couple of questions for you on the subject. My first question is, how did we get here?
So, Congress. It's really one word, Congress. They have allowed spending to exceed, I mean, it's the budget. It's the budget. They have never balanced a budget in decades. We haven't seen that happen. And unfortunately, Congress is what's created the amount of debt that we're in. And I believe that the reason for that is because people in Congress are more concerned about being reelected than they are about the people. So I'm America first. And yesterday when I went, because I've completed an application for endorsement from the House Freedom Caucus, and I do believe that I align perfectly with the House Freedom Caucus. But when I was writing one of the responses, I put in there America first, and I realized that, that's not fully descriptive. It does not fully describe exactly what it is I stand for. So I changed it, and I said, I am the American people first. Because America first means that you think of the United States before anywhere else. And I do agree with that. But I'm not America only. As the most powerful economically and militarily country in the world, we have a responsibility that when people need help, we should be there to support them. We should never fight endless wars like we've been doing, but we do need to do that. And that's where the America First comes in. But not America only. But America people first means that I'm here to fight, to make sure that everything that is happening, all the 40 bills that I've written, are here to take care of the American people.
You're going to go into Congress. You're going to join the Freedom Caucus. I entirely agree with that line of thinking, with that line of work. It's a major contribution to the freedom movement in the country. But that budget, that deficit, is bigger than any mountaintop in America. And you're going to be standing at the bottom of it. And there's no solution. There's no solution to it. And I just look at that and I think we all want the answer, but I
wrote 10. So the legacy suite is 10 bills. So the problem with Congress is that whatever money they get their hands on, they spend. So it doesn't matter if there's a surplus here or a surplus there, they spend it. And so that has to stop. So the first bill in the 10 bill suite establishes the National Debt Trust, the National Debt Retirement Trust. Sorry. And what that does is all the other 9 bills that create funds to help reduce the national debt goes into the trust. And the trust is built because as an amendment. It's a law that can't, because right now those are policies out there that where Congress can just spend money. So this forces the money to go into the retirement debt, the retirement trust, and that retires the national debt. If we took all 10 of my bills, it will still take to the 2060s to retire the debt. But it comes with teeth. So if for some reason the government shuts down, there are three triggers that happen in one of my bills. The first trigger is on day 8 of the government shutdown, the members of Congress lose 1 day pay for every day. On day 16, they lose 1.5 days of pay for every day. And at day 31, they lose 2 days pay for every day. And that money goes into a separate trust that is then donated once we end the government shutdown. They don't ever get that money back. That goes into a trust, and the trust then donates it to veterans or homeless or something. It does not go back to the members of Congress. The other two things are they're not allowed to go into recess, and they're not allowed to travel. So those are the three pieces of teeth that force Congress to actually sit down and figure out the problem, because they can't go anywhere. They're still in session, and they start losing their money.
I support any movement that the Freedom Caucus has. They're the only people in Congress with any sanity. You know, I think that the debt needs to be rebranded. This is enslavement. This is enslavement of the citizenry. Nobody wants this debt except for that congressional class, except for that electoral class. There was a time in this country when if a public official did not balance the budget, there was a jail sentence waiting for them on the other end. And although I like your measures, I think that the measures need to go a bit further. We need to rebrand this as enslavement. Congress is the slave masters. The citizens are the enslaved. And in my opinion, there needs to be more punitive consequences, like the ones I mentioned, when they walk over us with this continual debt. It ultimately, you know, it needs to be written off, because it's debt enslavement. It's funny money debt. It needs to be written off. They sunk the Weimar Republic with debt. Post World War I Germany, they sunk it with debt till the Germans wrote it off. I think they did it with France pre-Napoleon, and Napoleon wrote off the debt. And it's almost like we need someone like a Napoleonic type of figure to come in, write off the debt, and start laying out jail sentences for congressional reps if they do this again. I know my message is drastic, but I just put.
I love the idea. Unfortunately, we can't write off the debt because our debt is owned by other countries, and there's a lot of folks who think that China is the biggest holder of our debt. They're not. Japan is, and they own the bonds for the debt, and there's an interest rate attached to it. And so we could never just cancel the debt, because we would immediately have enemies across the planet, because we're talking $39.2 trillion. But what is unknown is that there are two triggers that are about to come up with that debt. One is the point of no return, and the second is the doomsday clock will expire. So in 5 years from now, 2031, so the debt continues to go up. The rate of increase of the debt in 2031 will exceed the growth of GDP. And that's the point of no return, because you can't reverse that. Well, it's very difficult to reverse it. And the second one is in 10 years from now, 10 years, in 2036 is the doomsday clock. That's when the debt is so high, no one will buy it.
Okay, Rocky, in previous conversations, you've told me an issue that's critical to you is our children.
Yep.
Tell us what that means to you and how that would translate in your work as a potential congressional representative one day.
So the first bill that I'll introduce when I get to Congress is called the Children's Bill of Rights. And the Children's Bill of Rights is another 10-bill suite. And the reason I break everything into a number of bills is because when bills have to get approved, they have to go into committee first, and then they have to pass through committee, subcommittee, come out of subcommittee, back to committee, up to the full House. And so if a bill is complicated like the Children's Bill of Rights is, because it covers many aspects of protecting children, I'll say this: that bill is the most comprehensive bill ever designed, ever written to protect children. Right now, the laws, and there aren't many of them, are spread amongst 15 different government agencies, and those government agencies don't speak to each other. So Bill 1 of the Children's Bill of Rights establishes a federal advocate. This is someone with subpoena power and someone with great authority over all of the laws that control children. But the suite is designed to close 5 different loopholes that predators have been exploiting for years. Here's the first, and it's the only loophole I'll talk about, because we could spend hours going through all this. But here's one loophole. Someone is a teacher in the state of Georgia. I'm just picking Georgia because because, and they abuse a child and they are fired from their job. Then they move to Florida. They apply to become a teacher in Florida and they get hired. And why? Is because there's no national database. So that this suite, the first loophole it closes is that it's a national database. And today, when I was speaking at an event earlier tonight, and I think that there's value in having this become an international database as well, because people move overseas and do the same thing overseas. So, but anyway, it'll at least start off as a national database. So that prevents predators from getting a job in that state and moving to that state and doing the same thing.
Very good, very good. You know, a central premise of the show since inception has been save the children. And there cannot be enough done in that regard. So I certainly support your efforts there. But, you know, there's one thing that we sort of do, which is a really bad tendency of our people, which is that we put a lot of emphasis on youth, and that's necessary, but then we forget about our seniors. And our seniors, in a big way, are also being victimized in this brutal economy that we're in right now. You have should you get elected, you'll have a considerable amount of seniors in your district. What sort of measures will you take on their behalf?
So I was at an event, I want to say now, it was probably a month ago. And I very proudly talking about my Children's Bill of Rights and all the good things, because, you know, it touches so many things: foster care and adoption and IVF and egg donor. And I mean, it touches everything. And that was what it was intended to do. And it's not complete. There were no lobbyists helping me write any of these bills. I had no staff. You know, when I was a Commodore at Navy Beach Group 1, I had a staff of 48. And I have a staff of 0 now. Well, I mean, I have some folks helping me on the campaign, but not to help write bills. But anyway, so when I wrote the Children's Bill of Rights and I was at this event talking about it, a lady came up afterwards and said to me, she says, "Yeah, well, what about seniors?" And I looked, deer in the headlights. I mean, that's what I'm like, wow, I hadn't thought of that. And so what I did is then I went home and I started working on how do we need to protect seniors? And I ran out of, and I immediately started writing the Seniors Bill of Rights. And so now I've done that. And I was able to uncover that there was really only one bill recently that's been protecting seniors, and I think it's called the Old Age Act. And I'm not exactly sure on the name, so don't hold me to it. But Congress defunded it in 2024. So, and the seniors are becoming the largest segment of our society, and the negative side of that is they're also becoming the largest segment of our society that is becoming homeless. And so Social Security, in the Senior Bill of Rights, I protect Social Security, I fix it. So I know when it's going to break, I know how it's going to break, because this is what I spent a lot of time on, and I know how to fix it. And I'm excited to get to Congress to be able to present all these fixes that I have, because who isn't going to vote against Social Security fixing or Medicare? And so these are designed to help seniors. Social Security, a lot of folks think of it as a savings account, and that's not what it is. Social Security is not a savings account. You paid into Social Security, but it was not paid in for you to get it all back. It was paid in because it's an insurance policy. That's how it was. Its original name had insurance written into the name. And it was intended to prevent seniors from becoming destitute when they retired. And so that's what that policy is for. And so I'm going to protect almost everyone in the program, except the very, very top of people who are making over $500,000 a year, retired in old age. That's their income level. So everyone below that, it won't touch any of them.
If you can do that, that's incredible, because everyone in sentiment will probably agree with that. You know,
yeah, I agree.
I mean, yeah, it's common sense. Um, for me, I find it embarrassing the fact that we have impoverished, homeless people on every street corner. In my neighborhood, they're everywhere, and there's a street corner that I have to drive by, and there's a woman who's homeless, and in this Texas heat, a lot of times she takes her clothes off. And so, we have to drive by with our children, and there's this woman with, everything showing, laying on a cement wall, cement floor. And it's sickening, it's gross, and it's embarrassing, and it's tragic. And so, you know, I don't know why, we take our pets, rescue dogs, we save all of our rescue dogs, and that's a beautiful thing. But we let our seniors to the elements. And it needs to be rectified. I want to switch gears here a little bit, you know, and I do appreciate that answer on seniors, by the way. I want to say that again. Um, my question is that here in the state of Texas, every Texan on every street corner in downtown, on the tip of their tongue, is energy independence, is the state of oil, is the state of oil prices. We're bringing a Floridian in to talk to us today. And what does that mean to you as a potential congressman in the state of Florida?
Energy independence. We were energy independent under President Trump, and Trump won 2000 and I don't remember what year it was, 18 or 19. And that's the first time in like 60 years that we were energy independent. And that's a very important aspect of what happens here in the United States. So I don't know if you saw this just came out about 3 weeks ago that in the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, that there's a section, an area of the Gulf where they estimate about over 10 billion barrels of oil, but it's been inaccessible. You can't get to it because the pressure in that area is too high. It's 20,000 psi. But American ingenuity, and I believe they're from Texas that did this, which I got to give them a huge attaboy, is that they were able to go to that section, and they are now pumping out of there. It's not in a huge volume, but they have now figured out how to tap into there, and that's over 10 billion barrels of oil that will come to the U.S. So with that level of oil, we should take ourselves off of the global standard. Yeah, the huge oil companies are going to probably not like that idea, but the small guys will. And small businesses and medium-sized businesses are what make America great. They are the biggest part of America. And I want to see us all succeed. And if we take ourselves off of the global standard, the Saudi oil cartel can't control our oil prices anymore because we're not on the standard. There are other countries that have done that. Norway is one of them. Norway came off the standard some time ago, and what they do is the companies that drill oil out of the country of Norway take 90%, I think it's actually 87%, but 87% of the profits from that oil that go back to the country. The U.S., there's nothing. But taking us off the standard, I think, is a positive thing because it would nationally bring our prices down to below $2.50 a gallon, and it would never come up.
Wow, excellent, very good. Last thing I want to ask you about, because this is a nagging issue for the people of Texas, and it's healthcare. Our healthcare prices are out of control. It hurts my family specifically in certain ways, and it's hurting families across the spectrum. What does that mean to you should you become the next congressional district for District 14 in Florida?
So I wrote 2 bills. And all the bills I wrote are all acronyms because I like acronyms because that's a military thing, you know. And so one's called the Choice Act and the other's called the Anchor Act. And so I had to go back 40 years to figure out where the healthcare industry went off the rails. But I did. I was able to figure it out, and I know what happened. And I know why it happened. And I can define the problems with our healthcare industry in 2 words. I can name that song in 2 notes. First is competition. There's not enough competition. There's very little competition. And the second is monopolies. The healthcare industry is one monopoly after another, and they own regions. And they're not allowed to cross state lines. You can't do healthcare across state lines. And that's going to change. So the Choice Act, what it does is it defines what the problem is, and it defines what the solution is. And the Anchor Act, this is a great example. It's illegal for any healthcare hospital not to publish their rates, right? And if they do not follow the law, they're fined. And the fine is something ridiculous like $1,500 a day. So most of the hospitals out there don't do it. Why? Because they'd rather pay the penalty. So let's change the penalty structure and apply teeth. So the penalties go up into the millions of dollars under my bill. Now, of course, I'm painting another bullseye on my back, and I don't mind. I don't care. I'll take a bullet for the country, but I'm going to reveal and identify where all the problems are, because monopolies are not allowed to exist in this country. But Congress has turned their back on it, and it's because they're all on the take. And I've told, I don't know how many people in this district, if I come back in 2 years and I'm a multimillionaire, fire me, because I've gone to the dark side. I won't be bought. I won't be taken out. I'm going to fight against this, because I'm the American people first, where they're all focused on. And this is not just the healthcare industry. This is the many, many industries that are regulated. Cable TV, cell phones. What they're doing is they're take care of the stockholders, not the stakeholders. The stakeholders are you and I. Why are we not looking at the American people as only a checkbook, instead of looking at what we need to take care of them? So those are the things I fight for. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, what you just said in that last sentence, everything from our health care bills to our cell phone bills are done with the investor class in mind and not the common man. And I support your endeavor in that regard. And should you become our next congressperson for Congressional District, I would appreciate it and hope and welcome you to be on the show again, specifically to fight that battle for the common man. I am done being railroaded. I'm done for us common people to be the ones that get walked on. It needs to end. So I support you.
I would ask you that if you want to understand what it is that I'm working on, you can go to my website, Rocky, ROCKY, the number 4, Congress.com. Up at the top, there's the issues button. Click on that and scroll down, and you'll see all 40 bills are all summarized, exactly what it is they're going to do, what their acronyms stand for. And again, I'm about America first, but the American people first. We have overlooked and taken advantage of the stakeholders in this country, which are the mom and pop America. These are the people who have lived here, who have worked here their entire lives, and are being taken advantage of. Do you know that there's over 500,000 people every year that file for bankruptcy because of health care debt? That needs to stop.
We'll end on that point.
Thank you, sir.
Rocky, you have a stake in the ground. What's that? I'm sorry?
I said, thank you. This has been wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I am going to fight, because people in Congress, we fight for our districts, but reality is we're fighting for the entire country. And the big reality is, and I got taken to the shed on this, is that it was somebody from Nicaragua who was exiled because of Ortega and the Sandinistas. He interviewed me on his radio show, and he said, you are making decisions in Congress for not only the U.S., but across the planet. So I take my future job very, very seriously. And I thank you, sir. Thank you, Chris.
Yep. And your energy just comes through that screen into this studio. It's amazing. Rocky, I want to thank you again for your time on the show. I wish you the best in this massive endeavor in front of you, in running in this Republican primary, and then potentially in the general election versus a well-entrenched, strong Democrat candidate. Certainly you have your work cut out for you. I think you have all the energy to get it done. Certainly you have the ideas. So, and with that being said, Rocky, thank you for being on the show, and have a great night.
Thank you, Chris. Good night.
Bye. And this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Show, and we'll be on next week with one more hot topic. Have a great week.